Hi guys, welcome back to Solidity Basics. In this section, we'll be covering errors. So errors are similar to exceptions. An error when thrown will undo all of the changes made to the state during a transaction. In Solidity, we can throw an error by calling require, revert or assert. So revert is throwing an error directly, require is throwing an error based on a condition, and assert is similar to require but different in the sense that we use it for internal purposes. We use it for asserting certain conditions that should hold good before moving ahead with the logic of the contract. We can also define custom errors, and they are more gas efficient because of the way they operate under the hood. So I'll walk you guys through the contract now. In the first function, we are throwing an error using require. So we do a simple check of whether the value of I is greater than 10 or not. And if it is not, we throw an error that input must be greater than 10. In the second function, we use revert for the same condition. The difference lies in the fact that if the condition is simple, like I is greater than 10, you can simply use require. If the condition is much more complex and then basis that you need to throw an error, then you should probably use revert. In the next function, we are doing a simple assert. This function, when executed, would assert if the value of num is equal to 0, and if the value of num is not equal to 0, the transaction won't succeed. Here we have a custom error defined. The syntax for defining a custom error goes like this. We name our error followed by the error keyword, and then we pass in some parameters that we would want to show up in the transaction log if this error is thrown. So we have a function that demonstrates the use of this custom error, and in this function we basically take in a withdraw amount and we try to withdraw some amount of way or ether from the contract. If this amount is greater than the balance of the contract, we throw an insufficient balance error which also contains the balance of the contract at the time of execution of this function, along with the withdrawal amount that was requested during the function call. We have another example contract here. It would be great if you guys can go through this on your own and try to understand what's happening here, and then try this on Remix ID. Okay, let's check out this code on Remix ID. So we have our contract here. I have made slight modifications to the test assert function, where we are, instead of checking whether the value of num is 0 or not, we are passing in a parameter and checking whether the value of num is equal to that parameter or not. So I'll compile the contract and then I'll deploy it. And now we'll test the functions. One by one. So let's start with test require. So ideally the input must be greater than 10. So let's pass in the value 9 here. So you see that an error was thrown and we get the message input must be greater than 10. Now let's check the test revert. Again the input must be greater than 10, so we'll pass in the same value and we see a similar error log. Error occurred revert, and reason provided by the contract input must be greater than 10. So here you'll see that the error log are similar for require and revert. It's just that require has a condition built in its syntax, and it's very good and clean way for simple conditions, while revert is much more suitable for complex conditions. So now let's check out the test assert function. So we have declared a variable num, and by default its value should be 0. So in order for assert to fail, we should pass in a value that is other than 0. So let me just pass in 1 and we'll call the test assert function, and you see that again it was reverted. It's just that we aren't showing some data on why this error occurred or why the transaction failed. So assert is mostly used for internal errors and check for conditions that shouldn't be true before moving forward. and at the last we have this custom error of insufficient balance. So the logic, as I already explained to you, if we withdraw an amount that is more than the balance of a contract, we get a custom error. So the balance of a contract is 0, and if we try to withdraw, let's say 1, in this case it would be one way. So let's just try and withdraw that, and you see that our transaction failed, and this is the error log that we have here. So we have a complete description of the error provided by the contract, we have the error name, and we have the parameters thrown along with it. So the parameter balance had the value 0 at the time of execution of this function, and the withdraw amount variable had the value 1 at the time of execution. So this is how we can get more details about an error by creating and implementing custom errors in our program logic. Okay, that's all for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.